It was a really sad day, a very sad Friday for me. In a few minutes, I would see my life turned into a mess that I wouldn't be able to control. The only thing to do at this point was to wait and see if the expected shit would actually happen. However, I would not become a weak slug who would grieve and feel sorry for myself. No, I've never forgotten what my old sergeant taught me long ago. Offense is the best defense. My only choice is to fight to at least save my honor, even if many other things go to hell. Yesterday, I got some information that gave me enough time to prepare well for the events ahead. That's why I was sitting in my friend's black Peugeot 307 parked in a secluded corner of the motel parking lot. I had been told that my wife would be here this afternoon, and now it was nerve-wracking to see if her red Toyota Yaris would arrive. She did, and within seconds, her real man pulled up behind her in his Ray BMW, which he parked next to my wife's car. He said a few words to her and went to the front desk. I got out of the car, walked over to my wife's Toyota, opened the unlocked passenger side door, and sat down in the seat. My totally surprised wife screamed, "You, Billy! What the hell are you doing here?" I held out a brown envelope to her and said, "Nothing much, just divorce papers for my cheating and soon-to-be ex-wife. Have a great time fucking your honorable, real man and feel free to stay here forever." She started screaming. "No, no, 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 you're completely wrong. It's not what you think. Let me explain why I am here. I assure you it is not for any deception. I demand a divorce, and I don't care if you're sleeping with that worm who just ran off to get the key to the room in your love nest. Feel free to be his whore, and like I said, I don't give a shit." It was obvious that my once loving wife expected this day to be a much more romantic event with her obviously horny, noble lover because she started crying loudly. At that moment, her so-called real man was coming back waving his room key, and when he saw Rebecca crying and still sitting in her car, he opened the door on her side and asked, "Who the hell is he and what did he do to you?" While he was saying this, I got out of the car, pulled a small plastic bottle out of my pocket, and as I ran up to him, I heard her sobbing, "He's my husband, and he's going to divorce me because of the two of us. I'm going to beat that stupid idea out of that damned bastard." As my lover turned towards me, I aimed at his face, squeezed a bottle with a mixture of water and shampoo, and the resulting jet of water hit him in the face. His eyes went blind, and it made him scream in anger. While he was temporarily incapacitated, it was time for my second weapon, a dart with 3 prongs soldered to the tip. I quickly stepped behind his back, then swung my right arm sharply and planted the dart through his pants and underwear deep into his left buttock. Thanks to the barbed tip, it remained stuck and would not be able to be pulled out without surgery. Overall, my actions were successful, so I left the obviously unsuccessful lover. He had shampoo in his eyes, a dart in his ass, and cussed like an old dock laborer. My cheating wife was still sitting there crying loudly in her chair. I made my way to my car and left the motel parking lot without further trouble. No matter what happened later that Friday, one thing was for sure. These lovers would not be in the mood for romantic sex. The beginning, I'm Billy Swenson, a 37-year-old Scandinavian guy currently married to 36-year-old Rebecca. Our 2 children, Emile, age 9, and Estelle, age 7. Rebecca and I have been together for 11 years and have been married for 10 of those years. We have almost everything that couples in our position dream of, so we should be very happy, but I regret to say that we are not. In my humble opinion, the main reason for our unhappiness is Rebecca's mother. Even though she's not green, doesn't have a tail, and doesn't spit fire, she should still be considered a truly hostile dragon who has never missed any chance to be a pain in my ass to me. It started with our first meeting. I was invited to dinner at Rebecca's house. It was more of a cross-examination than a nice dinner. After a lot of questions, the dragon said she didn't like my name because Billy is an I name, and she doesn't like people with I names. Upper-class families never gave their children names like that. For example, Billy, Kenny, Ronnie, Molly, Nellie, Cindy, etc. Thanks for that, I thought. I was surprised when both Rebecca and her obviously spineless, slobbering father remained silent, while the dragon humiliated me. She continued by saying that Swenson was a typical farming surname from the days when a son got his father's name along with son at the end of the surname. She continued by saying that she expected something better for Rebecca, since her second daughter, Natalie, was going to marry a fine man from a noble family. I had listened enough, stood up and said, Wasn't this guy's father a bastard in some distant branch of that family? And the fact that he's an unemployed parasite on the welfare system? Before anyone could answer, I continued. Will you come with me, Rebecca? To my great surprise, Rebecca came with me and we left what I thought was a dragon's nest. I'd known Natalie's boyfriend Alexander since my high school days and wasn't surprised that he, with his cheating skills, had led Rebecca's strange mother to consider him God's gift to Natalie. It was none of my business, and what did I even care? Of course, I wasn't invited to Natalie and Alexander's big wedding, and I didn't give a shit about that either. What I cared about was my relationship with Rebecca, and it got better and better until it got so good that it led to her accidental pregnancy. It made the dragon almost spitfire when she called me and blurted out her opinion of what a jerk I really was in her and other decent people's eyes, and that a wedding at her expense was out of the question. The Scandinavian Church of Los Cristianos on the Spanish Canary Island of Tenerife is a very popular place for small weddings, so Rebecca and I went there with our best friend and got married. Both Rebecca and I found a great job in a town 210 kilometers away from our hometown, so I had minimal contact with her mother, who spent all her efforts and a lot of money on Natalie and Alexander. The following years were good for Rebecca, me and our 2 children. We made good money, bought a nice house, and made many friends in our new hometown. Our sex life was still on a good level. Because of the distance, I had minimal interaction with Rebecca's family because her parents never visited us, and when we returned to our hometown to see my family, Rebecca visited hers. Finally, even Alexander had had enough of the dragon we shared as mother-in-law. To everyone's surprise, he had succeeded in his business and gladly accepted the promotion, which involved moving to a new place 280 kilometers away. After some arguments with Natalie, he gave her a simple choice: accept the move or get a divorce. She followed him to his new job. Now the dragon remembered that she had a daughter named Rebecca and started calling her daily. After a while, without realizing it, Rebecca began to feel colder towards me. The 3 wonks focused on more whining about what I did, didn't do, or should have done, and more crap about how good things were with Natalie and Alexander. Our relationship didn't improve when I told Rebecca that the main reason Alexander had left was to stay away from the hostile dragon that was his mother-in-law. Trouble never comes alone, and Rebecca's feelings for me grew even colder when a new guy, also from some side branch of a noble family, started working with her. Pretty soon, Rebecca started describing him as a sort of Superman, or at least a real man. He was married to a nurse, but his wife was in Tanzania, Africa, volunteering as a nurse at some medical center, and had about 3 months left before her trip was over. Real man. And his wife intended to buy a house when she returned, but for now he was living in our town, renting a room in his wife's married sister's house. Rebecca really bugged me when she compared my business, my vocabulary, and even my clothes to that real man at her job. Needless to say, who ended up being the winner in those comparisons? Although Rebecca and I still had sex, my attempts were often met with comments like, "Oh, again? And can't you ever have enough?" If it weren't for our children and Rebecca's many positive aspects, I would have dumped her a long time ago. But she was clearly a faithful, good mother, loved to cook, kept herself in good shape, and we worked well together, keeping the house and beautiful garden clean. If she hadn't started her nagging and other sour remarks about me, she would still be a dream wife for me. Of course, I wasn't a wuss who took all her crap without also telling her my opinion. It compounded our problems, like one night when our kids were asleep. "I really wish you were more like my coworker," Rebecca said. "If you're in love with this cheater, why don't you file for divorce and become his whore? But as long as we're married, I will never accept any cheating. Fuck that asshole behind my back and be sure I teach him that while you may act like a cheap whore, your services will command a high price." Rebecca started screaming hysterically. "You're just a bastard! What the hell did you just say about me? How dare you call me a whore? Be sure you pay for it." "Wouldn't it be better if your customers paid?" I shouted back. Before she could answer anything nasty, 2 frightened and crying children came up to us, and I started doing my best to calm them down. 2 very cold weeks followed after her outburst. The first weekend, she and our kids went to visit her parents, and then the next weekend when Natalie and Alexander came to visit us. Rebecca played good wife and was nice to me until our guests left Sunday morning. When we waved goodbye to them, she said, "Don't be naive to expect any favors from me." The following Thursday, everything went downhill when one of Rebecca's co-workers called me at work and after a brief introduction got straight to the point. "We have a new, very charming guy at work, and 3 of his female co-workers are competing to seduce him. Your wife, me, and another single girl. Although we begged your wife to leave it alone since she's already married to a good man, she refused to listen to us. Now she's damn proud and bragging that she won our contest and is going to the motel with him tomorrow after lunch." I thanked her and convinced her to keep that call a secret so I could do something about our problem. Back home after work, I watched Rebecca and felt that she was a little more cheerful than usual. After the phone call, I started thinking about what the old sergeant had said during my Army service. He was a big fan of the Apache warriors in the old Arizona Territory and their tactics of surprise, attack, and then disappear. I had no experience in street fighting, so my only chance to win was to do what those old warriors did. Rebecca boasted to me of a real manly black belt in some Japanese martial sport, so the element of surprise was very important. Pepper spray would have been great, but it's banned and unavailable in this country, so I had to find a simple alternative. A small plastic bottle of hair shampoo and water would have been my weapon of choice, and it worked well after the painful ordeal in my own eyes. The sergeant told us a lot about how amazingly effective silent arrows with jagged tips from a well-concealed ambush created fear among soldiers during the Arizona border wars. Of course, I couldn't use a bow and arrow against Rebecca's lover, but the idea led me to my little workshop in the basement. I took the nearest thing that was available, a dartboard. By soldering 3 1-centimeter-long pieces of sewing needles at a slight angle around the tip of the dart, I made a serrated tip. Hopefully, it would be difficult to remove it from some soft part of the body without surgery in a hospital. I had not the slightest desire to test this weapon on myself. After some thought, I had a simple plan without having to buy sophisticated equipment for my actions. The divorce papers issued to Rebecca and her lover, blinded for a few seconds, would give me time to stick a barbed dart in his ass. I doubted he would continue to be interested in having sex with my whore wife, at least as long as he had that dart in his ass. The next morning, Rebecca wore a rather sexy dress, but I pretended I didn't see anything strange about it and avoided comment in every way possible. We both behaved as usual on Friday morning. At my job, I traded cars for the day with my coworker and good friend Eric. We often did this when he needed my Volvo V70 instead of his own, smaller Rougeau 307. I went to the courthouse in the morning to get divorce forms and filled one out at my office. After a short search, I managed to contact the charity's head office in Tanzania and got the email address of my lover's wife, Rebecca, there. I drove to Rebecca's workplace on my lunch break and found both her and the lover's car still in the parking lot. Apparently, they had eaten lunch at a nearby restaurant before heading to the motel. So I bought a couple hot dogs and headed to the motel to wait for them. As you already know, the lovers arrived at the motel and my actions went exactly as planned. Thus, my time in the Army was not completely wasted, and I felt grateful to the old sergeant. At 4:30, my home phone rang, and the same female voice that had informed me of Rebecca's trip to the motel yesterday asked me, "Did you go to the motel today and see what you expected to see?" "Thanks for calling. Yes, I was there, but your coworkers were not happy to see me." I tried to cheer my wife up with divorce papers, but that gift somehow didn't make her any happier. This man threatened to hit me, so I had to defend myself, and he got some damage to his butt. I guess my wife took him to the hospital. It wasn't a very romantic date, at least in my opinion. Is that true? Oh, yes, it is. I have no reason to lie to you. My wife isn't home yet, but feel free to call her cell phone and ask. Of course, I can't guarantee she'll tell you the whole truth. Then she, whoever she was, thanked me and asked for Rebecca's cell phone number, which I gave her. I hope they had a nice chat. After that, I sent an email to the wife of a real man in Africa and explained the whole situation. Rebecca got home by 4 o'clock, and it was clear to see that she was not happy at all. She looked at me intently and said, "We have to talk, and we have to do it now, immediately." "That's not a problem for me. You and your lover got what you wanted, and you must have been completely crazy if you expected me to be like a slug, enduring the humiliation you and your so-called real man intended to give me. No way, Rebecca. I would never put up with that kind of crap without fighting for my pride." I replied. Although he didn't hurt you in any way, you hurt him so badly that I had to take him to the emergency room of the hospital. Rest assured, you will have to pay for that. In fact, we are 4 adults and 2 children, I told her, splitting the bill for what you and that creep did. You can't be non-serious if you think a poor nurse in Africa is happy after she got my email with information about you and her husband. Now she knows what kind of shameless crook she married and who she trusted. Did you really do such a nasty thing to his innocent wife? Even threatening me with divorce was really disgusting. I didn't threaten you with anything. Just sign the divorce papers and you'll get fair terms to be a free woman in 6 months. Refusing to sign and going to a lawyer will cost you a lot, and you'll still end up with the same terms. Now she realized I was being serious and started sobbing. Oh my God, do you really mean it? Please hear me out, for God's sake. I haven't done anything wrong. Yes, you did. By joining your feeble-minded mother's vendetta against me for no real reason, just because I don't have an upper-class name, you let her convince you to be an annoying bitch towards me. You're in love with a coworker who you consider your superior in all matters based on what she always told me. And then I found out that you competed with 2 single coworkers to get a date with this so-called real man. When you won that stupid game, you left work early today and went to a motel to pick up your prize, which meant you cheated on me by banging a married man. You know my opinion on cheating, so there can be no question about those consequences. I didn't cheat on you, not today or ever before, that's for sure, and you're the only man I love. Have you forgotten that we have 2 children? What about them? Our kids are the only reason your grumpy ass didn't get kicked out a long time ago. I hear day in and day out about all my shortcomings, according to your mother and your own opinion, about how fucking worthless I am compared to that creepy crawly creep. The real man you won, dated at the motel and apparently loved. I'm humiliated by your attempted deception and fed up with all the other shit you always throw at me. After a while, she realized the games were over and we began to negotiate a divorce. Rebecca signed the papers after I agreed that we should both continue to live in our house and not date anyone else for those 6 months until the divorce was final. Epilogue. This epilogue is written 6 weeks after my actions in thwarting Rebecca's attempted cheating. Strange things have happened in what is left of my marriage. I had discovered a good wife, a really very good wife indeed. Rebecca has turned into a completely different woman who has obviously forgotten how worthless I was just a few weeks ago. Rebecca and I are civil to each other and do a lot more together now than we did a few months before our problems came to light. Of course, we don't share a bed or bedroom anymore. Honestly, I don't miss the quickie favors she gave me during those few months before her attempted cheating. It sounds silly, but I believe her when she says she never slept with her real man. The motel date was supposed to be the beginning of their love story with a little sex now and then. Real man's wife demanded that he come to Tanzania to work for free at an aid camp until her own contract expired. He went there to save his marriage, and his wife sent me an email saying he was doing well and that she had forgiven him. She even begged me to forgive Rebecca. But I don't know what to do because we still have at least 20 weeks to think about it before our divorce is finalized. However, it will be interesting to see if Rebecca is serious about her good wife mission and how long she can continue it. This could be greatly helped if one famous dragon remains submerged in the depths of Loch Ness, Lake Champlain, or simply remains in her nest.